For Victims and Villains, my name is Josh, and today we are jumping into the mud to talk about the independent horror film Pig Killer. Pig Killer is a biopic that tells the story of Robert Willie Pickton, who basically terrorized Vancouver for a period of time where he would go into town. He lived on a farm. He'd go into town, bring back hookers, and ultimately kill them, and then feed them to his pigs. Let me just start off by saying that this movie has to have a career best performance for Jake Busey. There's a vulnerability and deviousness and just range that I've never seen Busey do in other films. I think one of the things that is really strong about this film, and particularly his performance in this film, is that he has an ability to really kind of just be a chameleon for whatever the scene needs. And honestly, that is kind of the scariest thing about this movie and about the Pickton character, is that here you have a guy that feels almost like Vancouver's version of John Wayne Gacy. He's very charismatic. He's kind of awkward, but also at the same time, like, he is just a guy that's also been traumatized. And I love the film. I love the exploration of that aspect in this movie. And Busey at the center of it, definitely, again, career best performance. Tonally and visually, this movie kind of feels like the 2003 Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's really grimy. You get done watching this movie and you feel like you immediately need a shower. And I think a large portion of that comes from Chad Ferrin, the writer, director, producer on this movie, his vision for this film and really capturing the just absolute insanity of Pickton's not only character, but also at the same time his crimes. And I think that this film perfectly captures that. But at the end of the day, I really wish we got to see more of these crimes. Now, don't get me wrong, this movie, there are sequences when you are actually seeing him actually pursue the lifestyle of crime. Absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, these are the toughest scenes that I've had to watch in any movie this year in 2023. There are sequences in this movie that the uncomfortability Ferrin lands himself with those sequences in the same camp as sequences in like The Human Centipede, Irreversible, High Tension, etc. And I think that's when the film is at its strongest, not only with Busey's performance, but also the writing and the storytelling is the strongest when they're actually fixating on the crimes. I will also preface this in saying that this is a movie that's going to be for a niche audience. Pig Killer is not the type of film that you can show a general audience and have them applaud this movie and walk out praising it. On the contrary, this is going to be for horror fans that really do like hardcore stuff and are more comfortable around things like violence and sexual assault and a lot of the subjects that the film deals with. And with that, I think this movie would have been way stronger had it been under 80 to 85 minutes like the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and not this movie that is over 2 hours. Those sequences that I just praised a little bit ago, those sequences are very far and few between. There are a number of storylines in the front half of this movie that honestly just feel like they were there simply to extend the runtime, and what we end up having is just the equivalency of a puff piece. Kate Patel in this movie, she plays a character named Wendy, and Wendy's introduced in the beginning of the film, and you think that this is going to be perhaps one of Busey's victims, and it ultimately just kind of explores her troubles with drugs and then drops her and then reintroduce her at the start of the third act. Like, just decisions like that is kind of what makes Pig Killer one of the more baffling narratives that I've seen this year. I think also one of my other complaints about this movie is that some of the storylines feel like they were mistaken for character development because they're trying to position themselves to kind of develop Busey's character when in actuality it does nothing but weigh down the story. The practical effects in this movie are top notch. I even like the comedy in this movie. It's got a little bit of a dark side to it. And I think that sometimes we don't see enough of that. And so to have it kind of in a film like Pig Killer, it feels kind of refreshing to experience that. Let's run this one through the Rorschach rating scale. I'm going to go ahead and give Pig Killer a 2 out of 5. I think this movie just screams missed opportunities. Like, Ferrin is definitely a talented writer and director, but a lot of the pacing and some of these several storylines in the front half of the movie really don't have any payoff in the end of the film, but it also has great gags, great humor, and a career best performance from Jake Busey, and the performances all around actually are really well done. I really think it's just kind of the way that the narrative lays itself out that this movie could have been better suited in the medium of a 6-series miniseries on Shudder, Netflix, or Hulu. Like, this film, it tries to do so much in such a condensed runtime, and it either needs to save it and have a more brisk pacing, or it needs to extend those storylines and pursue a different medium. All right, so Pig Killer comes to VOD and limited release, as well as physical media from Breaking Glass Pictures on November 21st. If you guys were lucky enough to see it in its festival run, what did you guys think about it? Comment below and let me know. But there's going to be no mental health for this video, so if you or someone you know is struggling with suicide, addiction, self-harm, or depression, in the show notes below, you guys will find links to our mental health resource library. Please stay with us. Until next time, remember to stay classy.